Mass evacuation efforts are still going on at Kabul airport. Tens of thousands of people have been trying to leave Afghanistan since the Taliban takeover on August 15th. There has been some violent resistance in the north, but there are signs the Taliban is looking for peace talks. For the latest, let's go to Zmarialai Abbasin, a freelance journalist in Kabul. Zmarialai, it's good to see you again. Can you tell us first what the situation is in the north of the country and the Taliban's plan for these anti-Taliban fighters?
Hello and good morning. The situation at northern Panjshir province is still in pause, and the Taliban said they've surrounded the resistant forces in Panjshir from three different provinces, Takhar, Badakhshan and Baghlan provinces, and they still seek a negotiation way to solve the problem. But from the resistance side, they have already told that they have conditions to talk with the Taliban and also make a settlement with them. So there is no conflict at the moment, but it's already surrounded, and the resistant forces said they have thousands of fighters and weaponry, that they will not surrender in any case. But if the Taliban want to negotiate, they are ready to enter the negotiation table, but on some conditions. And the Taliban are under pressure, and Panjshir Valley is not a simple deal, an easy deal for the Taliban. The world is watching the Taliban. They're already under pressures to make a legitimate government and inclusive one. And the Panjshir Valley has been a very critical situation along the history, and that's what again we are witnessing. So we are waiting to the channels like Dr. Abdullah Hamid Karzai and others to middling the situation and finally make it happen. But it's not clear yet. And it seems like the Taliban are waiting to US withdraw, and they are prioritizing some details in Kabul, including the biggest one, finally establishing a government that could lead the country.
So there's all these evacuations going on in Kabul airport, and Joe Biden has until August the 31st, this deadline for US troops to leave Afghanistan, and the Taliban has warned of consequences if they don't meet this deadline. Is it looking likely?
The situation on the ground and airport, when it comes to the evacuation, it's on the in the same path. There is chaos, there is firing sometimes, and the people, crowds, they're reaching out from other provinces, as they've just heard that you just reach Kabul airport and things may happen and you will go to the United States of America. But US says there are 14 different locations, including Qatar, Germany, Italy, UAE and others, that there are safe havens for those evacuees. When it comes to the deadline, 31st of August, it's something Taliban shows their seriousness towards this decision, that they must not delay all the issues. But as I get information from some very important sources, they say that if the Taliban can make a compromise with some time delays, like prisoner were released took 6 months, and then May 1 was a deadline to evacuate the evacuation for the United States and foreign forces. And it's still a negotiable issue that the Taliban will step up, and Zalmay Khalilzad, the U.S. Special Representative, is already on the scene. He is the main person who has drawn all these paths to a settlement with the Taliban. So many believe that the Taliban will reach a deal, but they just want to show the seriousness of the issue, because they've been telling this, no, even one armed man won't be acceptable for them.
Something that's probably quite far from people's minds at the moment, but it's still a very real concern, and that's the COVID-19 pandemic. So, Zmarialai, how is all this chaos affecting the situation there? And with all these people being evacuated, trying to leave Kabul, any tests going on for them?
Well, the people doesn't care about COVID-19, unfortunately. In Kabul and other provinces, when Taliban took Kabul, everybody just lost their normal path of thinking, the panic that is already destroying the psychological system of many people, and they are in shocks. It's almost 9 days, and the situation of mental situation of many people is not getting normal. That's why many people have forgot about the COVID-19 issue. No masks and everywhere, and in bazaar nowhere, and particularly when we see airport, there are crowds, everybody is stuck to each other. They are rushing towards the points that they think they would reach to the plane, and that's why COVID-19 measures are no more something very tangible, very important for the people.
All right, thank you so much. Really appreciate the updates. As Marialai Abbasin, journalist in Kabul, for us. Earlier, my colleague Beatrice Marshall spoke to a Taliban spokesperson and asked about the group's position on a possible U.S. troop withdrawal delay, as well as its plans to consolidate power.
What about this urge to the U.S. to delay its withdrawal from Afghanistan? What are your thoughts on that?
They had agreed to withdraw all their forces by May 1st, but they violated that deadline. Now, they have announced that they withdraw all their forces by August 31st. They should abide by their announcement. If they violate, so that would be a clear violation. In that case, it is up to our leadership to decide how to proceed and what to do.
On Tuesday, the G7 leaders are meeting over the situation in your country. Among the issues on the agenda is that the United Kingdom is pushing for the economic sanctions on the Taliban. Now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is also expected to urge the United States to delay its withdrawal from Afghanistan. What do you make of this request?
I think if they push forward for sanction, will be a biased decision. Will be against the people of Afghanistan. The people of Afghanistan fought for 20 years against occupation. It was a popular uprising. You saw province after province was falling to us. In district after district, they were falling, all of them, to us, and in a peaceful manner. So it was a popular uprising. So what they are going to impose sanction against Afghanistan is against the people of Afghanistan. While we need reconstruction of the country, we enter the new phase, a phase of peace, of peaceful coexistence, national unity of the Afghan people. So there is need for a lot for cooperation, financial support in this critical time. While the people of Afghanistan need financial support of other countries, they are talking or speaking of sanctions. So I think it is kind of hostility with the people of Afghanistan.
There are reports that there have been pockets of resistance in some areas in the North Province, particularly in Banglan Province. Anti-Taliban forces have said they are ready to fight to the end. What are the Taliban's plans to consolidate their control given such resistance?
There is no resistance in those areas. Of course, there is our opponents at Panjshir Wali. That's true. But to them, we have sent a group of religious scholars. We want to resolve the issue through talks in peaceful means. If they opt for fighting instead of peaceful means, that responsibility will rest with them, not with us. In that case, when we exhaust all peaceful means, then we will show reaction, but the responsibility will not be rest with us, but with them in that.
Our reporter has spoken to a resident in Kabul who spoke of the rising prices of daily necessities and the difficulties in their lives.
My name
is Haji Mamour. Actually, the price of goods in Kabul has increased. People are facing problems due to the current situation and lack of enough food. The reasons behind the increase in the price is due to the arrival of Taliban members, and people want the Taliban to address the difficulties which have occurred. We expect them to provide facilities and services, and to bring a decrease in food prices as well as in the prices of gas and petroleum. Food prices have increased compared to last month, and people have also been faced with many difficulties. Those people who want to go abroad, it's because they can't deal with their family's issues in Afghanistan. If the current issues are not resolved as soon as possible, it will create more problems for people.
Reuters reports U.S. President Joe Biden will soon decide on whether to extend the deadline for evacuations past August 31st. The UK says it has airlifted over 7,000 people out of Kabul as of Monday. The Times says 6,000 more are to be flown out this week. Germany announced on Monday it has evacuated about 3,000, and the country's top military commander, General Eberhard Zorn, said another 5,000 are waiting to leave Kabul. And the US said on Monday it has airlifted 48,000 people out, but it's not known exactly how many people are still waiting for evacuation, on top of the 6,000 troops stationed at the airport. EU officials say it may be impossible to evacuate everyone at risk. There are tens of thousands of Afghans trying to flee Taliban control. Many are waiting near the airport, hoping that foreign governments will give them an escape route. Yola Abdavid reports.
From eastern Turkey to western Spain, the Afghan crisis is being felt by most NATO member states. Anticipating a new refugee crisis, Turkish authorities are reinforcing their border with Iran to stop an influx of mostly young male Afghans escaping Taliban rule. This plane landing near Kyiv had Ukrainian international and Afghan nationals on board. Already, the US is warning of security threats, and the European Union says it may be impossible to evacuate everyone who could be at risk.
We have representatives from the international media and international humanitarian organizations which were under threat in Afghanistan. Ukraine has helped them to escape and to start a new life in safety.
More than 200 people fleeing the instability arrived in the UK overnight. A military plane landed in central England as the government has promised to resettle up to 5,000 Afghans. A former British Prime Minister who followed the US into war says the decision to abandon the people of Afghanistan is tragic, dangerous and unnecessary, and says that the decision to return Afghanistan to the same group from where the carnage of 9/11 arose seems almost designed to parade our humiliation. Tony Blair goes on to ask, has the West lost its strategic will? Also in London during the weekend, thousands protested against the takeover of Afghanistan and to show solidarity with those opposed to the Taliban. In contrast to chaotic scenes at Kabul airport, life elsewhere is carrying on, but there weren't many customers at this market. One Taliban official urged Afghans to stay to improve the country.
My message to them is to stay inside the country. We have no personal problem with anyone. Amnesty has been given to all government officials, so they should honestly serve the country.
There is just over a week for foreign governments to honour their pledges to bring their citizens home safely and offer safe passage to Afghans who worked for them in the past 20 years. Yolo Abdavid, CGTN.
We're joined now by Calvin Darg over Skype from the U.S. capital, Washington, D.C. He's a commentator on international current affairs and the principal and co-founder of PR firm RC Communications. Mr. Darg, it's good to see you. I want to bring your attention first to the recent polls from CBS and NBC News that was published on Sunday, and that's showing Biden's slip in support. Now, NBC found that 49% of participants polled in August approved of the job that he is doing, and that's down from 53% in April. Overall disapproval grew over the same period, jumping from 38% in April to 49% in August. And this has been driven by his handling of the coronavirus and the situation in Afghanistan. CBS found 63% of participants support withdrawing troops, but 70% said that removal should have been handled better. And 60% of participants in the NBC poll said that they disapprove of Biden's handling of Afghanistan. So, Mr. Dark, how will this affect Biden's administration in the long term, leading up to midterms next year?
Well, I think with all the numbers that you provided, needs to be a little bit of context. First of all, when it comes to the overall approval rating that is dipped, we have to remember that this is pretty common at this time in the presidency, particularly in the first year. It's around the same amount that it was with President Obama and President Clinton. It's higher than I think President Trump's ever was. Now, when you get to the very specific numbers about Afghanistan, the one that really matters is the 60+% of Americans that support the withdrawal. Because, yes, there are many Americans who don't believe this was handled in the best way. And for the short term, that's what we're going to be hearing about. But what's going to matter long term is that regardless of the chaos that we're seeing, a strong majority of Americans supported the withdrawal. Now, when it comes to the midterms and the Biden administration's political future, here's the reality. In the United States, Americans rarely ever base their votes on elections on foreign policy, particularly in a midterm election. So I think that while for the moment this may change President Biden's popularity, I don't think it will have long-term effects, and I don't think it will affect the midterms at all.
Biden is being told by the Taliban that there will be consequences if he extends this August 31st withdrawal deadline and evacuation deadline. But his G7 members and his allies are pushing him to extend it. So it seems like he's really stuck between a rock and a hard place here. What kind of factors does he have to consider in making this decision?
Well, I think the most important thing that he's going to consider is, remember, throughout all of this, through the chaotic withdrawal and everything that, even intelligence, U.S. intelligence officials didn't really predict that it would be this fast and this chaotic. The one thing that has been, that he's founded his decision on is to make the 31st the deadline sure, and that is what America was supposed to do, and that we'll deal with the chaos. So if he goes back on that, the one thing that had legitimacy he would lose, so I don't think he is. However, I think that the United States will continue to evacuate Americans and Afghan allies as long as we need to, and that may go past the 31st, and some, including the Taliban, may call that an extension. I don't think the Biden administration ever will. I think the official deadline will remain as it is, but that we will not stop until Americans and Afghan allies are evacuated.
All right, thank you so much, Calvin Dark, joining us from Washington, D.C. Leaders in Central Asia have agreed to coordinate joint action on Afghanistan following the Taliban's takeover. In an online summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin voiced concerns that the Islamic State group still has a foothold in Afghanistan and continues to be a threat. Stuart Smith has more.
Well, it was indeed a top-level meeting with most of the states affected by the situation in Afghanistan. We know the conclusion came out that the importance of the responsible restoration of state power in Afghanistan through peaceful dialogue, taking into account the interests of all groups in the country, is the priority for the CSTO states. Russia saying, though, that it will not be involved in any form of mediation, and especially not military intervention. At the end of the day, the CSTO is a military alliance, in effect Russia's answer to NATO, and the states involved are all in an agreement whereby one state helps the other if one feels under attack or vulnerable, and in particular concerns for Tajikistan, which shares a 1,300-kilometer long border with Tajikistan. It's the CSTO state with the longest border with Afghanistan, and to come out of this meeting some concrete proposals for further military exercises to be held on the Tajik-Afghanistan border, and also speeding up of a program to further strengthen that border. In addition, we heard that the CSTO states have a number of concerns. One of those is, of course, terrorism. President Putin of Russia declaring once again that Islamic State is still very strong in Afghanistan. But there's also this concern that refugees who are being evacuated from Afghanistan, some by Western nations, some moving into the CSTO states with their help, could potentially be militants in disguise, and this could be an opportunity to export the Islamist mindset to these Central Asian nations. That's one of President Putin's big concerns, but the CSTO states also have concerns around drugs. Will Afghanistan once again become a haven for drug trafficking?